For me, Hogwarts Legacy had everything it needed to be one of the best games in recent years. The world, the spells, the lore, everything was ready for this to be the game. And it was, financially at least. But in terms of the actual gameplay and story, there was a lot left to be desired. From the outside, the game appears to give players the chance to experience being a student at Hogwarts, but it feels very different once played. You're not a student, you're the chosen one that saves the world only months after discovering it even existed. You don't attend classes, you march out into the Scottish Highlands, raiding homes, and wiping out hordes of enemies before breakfast. I wanted to try and create a possible alternative to what we got. One where the school is the center of the game. One where the game was built around routine, friendships, tragedy, and choice, rather than what it turned out to be. One of the most talked about topics is that Sebastian's story is better than the main quest. So, for this rewrite, we're going to be making Sebastian's story the main quest. The player character knows Anne personally, and so is invested, right alongside Sebastian, in finding some cure for her. She's no longer a side character that we meet halfway through the game, but a main character that we personally know. From there, a story of power and responsibility is born. Sebastian gathers several students, including the main character, together in order to study magic that's not necessarily taught at Hogwarts, in the hope that something will help his sister. But these noble pursuits won't save Anne. As the player strengthens their understanding of ancient magic, and Sebastian turns towards darker solutions, the question of the story is quite obvious. How far are you justified in going to save the one you love? Instead of beginning as a new fifth year, the story begins with the player receiving their Hogwarts acceptance letter. They head to Diagon Alley, board the Hogwarts Express, and take the boats across the Great Lake before being sorted into their house. From there, the first 3 years serve as a playable prologue, introducing the school, basic gameplay systems, and the core cast that will define the story. These 3 years will establish the foundations of the story, especially Anne's curse. Introduced during the third year and ending in her leaving Hogwarts, this is the crux that pushes everything else forward. The fourth year is condensed through a time skip, and the main portion of the game takes place during the fifth year, when those early relationships and losses have had time to deepen. As was mentioned previously, the protagonist is given a history to ground them in this world. While powerful, they won't be defeating trolls and hordes of wizards a day after learning the wizarding world existed. Through the character creator section at the beginning of the game, the player will get to shape aspects of their character, and this will only be expanded upon in the role-playing choices throughout the game. As is the case in the real game, the player still has this connection to ancient magic, but it will have much more of a focus in this game. As the player begins to help everyone around them and learn more about this power, they develop something like a savior complex, believing that because they have this special power, they get to decide what happens, much like a certain person that lived a few hundred years ago. I think the game should focus on the daily life of a Hogwarts student. I don't think the game benefits from being a large open-world RPG that just happens to have Hogwarts on the map, where you spend most of your time away from the school. As a result, we're changing the game to be much closer to a student life simulation. The day is divided into 5 time periods. There are 3 classes per day, with astronomy taking place on 2 nights of the week. Between classes, there is time to explore, study, talk to students, complete quests, etc., but you only have a limited time before you have to go to the next class. On one hand, the goal is to make it feel like you're a student, even if the most important things happen outside of classes. On the other hand, this also makes it so that you must choose what to do. If Sebastian needs your help with something during a class, do you skip? Or, if you need something that you can only get at night, do you sneak out of the castle to get it instead of studying for your exam the next day? Replayability and role-playing should be enhanced by these changes, and the choices you make should inform what kind of witch or wizard you choose to be. Progression should be tied to classes. In order to unlock new spells and improve upon them, the player should have to engage in being a student at Hogwarts. Instead of learning spells through assignments from professors, the player should improve through attending classes, studying, practicing, etc. We don't want the player to feel like an unstoppable force capable of wiping out entire groups of enemies alone. Growth should come from effort, consistency, and engagement with the school on the character side, and skill improvement from the player side. By engaging with the education side of Hogwarts, the player should feel less like an action hero that happens to be at the school, and more like an actual student that studies to improve their skills. I think the map in Hogwarts Legacy is way too large. In some games, say Assassin's Creed Black Flag or Red Dead Redemption 2, the huge map works very well for the story they are trying to tell. But I don't think it works here at all. The map feels empty, only filled by copy and pasted encounters that barely count as puzzles most of the time. For the rewrite, I want the main playable space to be Hogwarts, the grounds immediately surrounding the castle, Hogsmeade, and the Forbidden Forest. I think there are plenty of areas on this current map that most players have never seen, and all of them are better as story locations than a random cave. Other locations will be present, such as the previously mentioned Diagon Alley and King's Cross Station, among others, but they will exist only for their selected story moments. The map should feel intentionally designed for the direction of our game and story, instead of being designed primarily for scale. I think there is a huge missed opportunity for character quests in Hogwarts Legacy. I think memorable characters are some of the things we remember most from Harry Potter, and they feel really lacking in this game. I think most people feel the professors are great additions to the game, but what do you really know about them? For the few players that talk to them, you know a few basic details about their backstory, but that's it. You attend their class once and have a couple of assignments from them, and then they show up at the end of the game, but there's not much to them. And I think the students are the same in that regard. For this, I think the obvious change is to give quests to more characters with multi-part quest lines that develop over the school year. You complete a quest and then must spend time with them, such as at meals, playing games, studying, etc., before unlocking the next quest. These quests allow the player to learn more about these characters' backstories, personal struggles, perspectives, etc. Some quests will be lighter and more fun, some deeper and more personal, and others with more direct ties to the main story and its central moral conflict. I want there to be multiple quests per house, as well as more for the professors and some other notable characters. I also don't necessarily expect the player to complete every questline in a single playthrough. We'll meet a wide range of students, professors, and characters over time, but the player will have to choose who to invest time into based on a number of factors. The goal is to add replayability, but more importantly, strengthen the roleplay. I didn't want Hogwarts Legacy to feel like your standard open-world action RPG that has a standard chosen one storyline and a big final boss at the end of it all that felt like it came out of nowhere. All I wanted was the simple story of a student at Hogwarts to feel the magic that the books first gave to me all those years ago. I think the game only improves if the experience is centered on Hogwarts, with student life being essential to the progression and building a main story that is more personal. I wanted a game that placed greater weight on the routine of school life, friendships, choices, and the consequences that came with them. I wanted a game that was less of a broad open-world power fantasy and more of a character-driven, school-life RPG where everything was unified under one vision. This video is a brief overview of the direction that I would have taken Hogwarts Legacy. Rather than trying to write a several-hour video all at once, I wanted to first start with the outline and goals. Those being a smaller and more focused game, a more personal main story, a strong emphasis on student life, and a unified vision. From here, the rewrite will focus on one topic at a time, in a series of videos that go into each subject in greater depth. One video might be on the protagonist, for example, while another might be on the map, or classes, or the progression system. These videos all build towards a much larger final video, a full and detailed version of this rewrite that brings everything into one vision. I've begun working on this. It's so far 25 minutes long, and the player has just made it to platform 9 3/4, so it will be quite in depth. Thank you for watching, and if you made it all the way to the end, I'd really like to hear what you think. Whether it's about the story, the structure, the characters, or the systems, I'd love to hear your takes. This is the first video that I've made, and your feedback will help shape where this rewrite goes. Until next time.